Well, I got the grass cut. I got this mold to the stage it's leaving a fingerprint. So now I'm going to get some glass on it. Now what I'm going to build this mold up with is a DTO 81 and sort of like a sand mixture. Get with Freeman Manufacturing. That's been replaced with a different number. This glass cloth is a tooling cloth, and there's the specs on it. It's what I'm going to build it up with. It's not super important. It's the exact same cloth, but it gives you a good conformability and it builds up quick. So anyway, I was looking at the stream earlier when I laid up the gel coat. It looked like the bit rate and everything, or whatever my settings were, seemed like they were a little bit better. Such a learning process with some of this computer stuff. Fun to do once you get it, but okay, so DTO 81, that's the cloth, and then HTR 250 1063, which basically will give you a tool that's good past 300. So this was 7 grams. So let's see here. Let's just say if I set it for 107, give me 100 grams of resin. 107, so that way DTO 81 is added after the curing agent. 1063 is 24% per hundredweight. So let's go with 100 grams of resin. And if I need more, I can make more. And the thing is, with the build-up of this mold, it's doesn't have to be done in all at one layer. Matter of fact, sometimes if you actually add too much too quick, you get the exotherm on the mold. Let's see, I went to a little past. See, I went to 108. I think we'll be all right. So I need 24 grams on top of it. 107. 131. Sometimes I just like to look at it, sit there, guess in my mind, and if I don't write it down, it doesn't look right. Alrighty, 131. Let's go 31 and a half. Since I overshot the resin a little bit, 131 and a half. Same thing, I just wait till I get a bounce in the beam. Overshot it a little bit, maybe half gram. A little bit of crusties in there. As you can see, this is a pretty fluid resin. the same old thing. Keep scraping the sides. I don't worry too much about air bubbles with the laminating resin at this stage. At this stage, by the time I get ready to start applying this stuff, all the bubbles have come to the top. It's thin enough to where the bubbles will escape if you let it sit there a minute. Let me keep forgetting to put my dock on, my chat. It's one of those things with this program, you got to turn the chat on and off. So I plan on doing a lot of streaming. I think the process is going to be a lot of streaming, and then I'm going to go back and look at these streams and see if I can edit them. The way this program's set up, you should be able to stream and then also go record to your hard drive, so I can go back and edit what's on my drive. And it'll be sort of redundant, but I'll be able to pick up certain things out of the video and streamline it and see if it reaches a different audience. And I'm not worried about monetization or anything. I mean, if I can make a few bucks, fine. All I'm trying to do is just put this stuff out there for somebody that can advance their hobby or their enjoyment of the hobby. That's all I want. Now these brushes in the past, they were sort of iffy. Now they had a deal when I was making landing gear with these brushes. If I didn't clean them, it's almost like they had contaminants or grease on them. It's almost like there was a release agent on it or something. I had fish eyes. So I take these acid brushes and I clean them with a little acetone. And you can see by doing that it washes contaminants out. So, you know, who knows what the process of these bristles are. I'm sure they don't really clean them. I don't know if it's horsehair or what it is, but it doesn't seem like a synthetic fiber. So anyway, okay, now we're ready to get some epoxy on this thing. So what I like to do at this point, so get me another cup, and you need that. I like to get a coat of glass on here. Get some resin on here. Don't worry about getting it on too thick at this point. Let's get it on there. You know, if you get to this stage with the mold making, I mean, this is going to be a room temp mold, or let's put it this way, it'll be a high temp mold with the resin, but I'm not shooting for the autoclave type stuff on this one. So if I get to the point where one's going in the autoclave, I might have to worry about air bubbles or compaction. It's got to be a consolidated mold, so I'll be careful. So no, I don't have an autoclave. but I wanted to make a mold that would go in an autoclave, and I want to job it out, see where I'm at for future reference. If I get to where I can make molds that will withstand an autoclave, it'll really help the process. Alright, so now we got it lathered up pretty good. Like I said, I try to keep it clean as I go. Okay. As you can see, it's oversized, which is, it's fine. I'll show you why here in a minute. Let's see where to put my brush at. The beauty of this glass, it wets out so well, and the style of this glass allows you to actually work it around crevices and folds. Now, looking at the way this is forming, I'm going to fill in the perimeter with a little DTO81. So I'm going to take some of this resin, I'm going to pour it in this cup, and don't ask me exactly what the DTO81 is, but it's one of these things where it's like a sand mixture. See how that's coming out of there. The other thing this stuff does, once you mix it into your laminate, it gives it some tooth, it gives it some bite for subsequent layers. And I've mixed this stuff up so thick it turns into like a dough. So as you can see, it's probably like a thinned out mayonnaise or almost like a honey. What we're shooting for is maybe not quite a peanut butter consistency, but see how close we can get it. So we're starting to see how it's conforming a little bit. So now it looks pretty good. It looks like it's holding the shape, and that's what we want. And like I said in the description on this video, this was a product of Freeman Manufacturing. They're up there around Cleveland, I believe, or in Ohio, if I remember right. They sell a lot of foundry supplies, glass cloth, release agents and stuff. I bought this in the 90s. It never goes bad, but They've got a replacement for it now. It's not DTO81. I think it's another number. But for all practical purposes, I think what they got, whatever they replaced it with, will work. Now, the other option, instead of this DTO81, making it yourself, you can buy tooling paste. And that tooling paste or tooling dough is already pre-mixed as far as the filler. All you're doing with that stuff, you're just mixing the two parts together. I like this stuff because, you know, you can always add it to whatever resin you're using, and you can make your own dough. So I got to get enough down here in the corner to bridge that corner so that glass will flow over this corner, inside corner. Make sure there's no voids. Get it down in there relatively smooth. You can flare it out. I'm going to go around this side, do the same thing over here. So it's like a really thin peanut butter consistency. The other thing to remember, if you mix this stuff up as time goes by, you're going to find it thickening up. The other thing I'd like to do is make a handle out of this stuff. Now, I don't mean the structural part, but the grip. If you load this resin up with a lot of this powder, it becomes a dough, and you can take it in your fist and you can form it up. So I got a nice fillet over here. Make sure I get enough up around the nose here with all the nooks and crannies around that scoop. All right, now I'm just going to lay this back down. I'll work this into the tooling compound. Like I said, this fabric is nice because it actually bends and forms. So my surface coat is firm enough to where you're not going to distort it. So when you start rubbing this second layer in, like I said, it'll leave a fingerprint. I gotta chat there, see. I gotta get my glasses on. Let's say, hey, just tuned in today. Oh, Steve? Yeah. The little description on what this is, I just call it the pod. And the idea behind this pod, and I'll sort of elaborate a little bit more at the end here, but the pod is for an RC airplane. And the idea is you could adjust the wing. You could put a pylon on top and sort of turn it into a free flight type thing, a floater, or you can hop the motor and you could put a lower wing on it. So the pod basically is just something to hold on to all your components, your radio, and hold everything together. The reason why I'm putting this pod together, it's a smaller size than a control line fuselage. I'm trying to work myself into a fuselage that's full size. So it's sort of a test bed, I guess you could say, this pod is. That way I can figure out the process and how everything's working. See a little bit better. And that's why I split the resin. You know, I took some resin and I put the DTO81 in it, and I left some clear resin here to finish this off. And the whole idea on this pod too is eventually I'm going to make a mold that will go in an autoclave. Instead of taking a 4 or 5 foot mold right off the bat, I got to see if my process and everything I've got is going to work on the autoclave level. And I'll take it to JT over there and see if they'll run it through the cooker for me. And then if everything, I'd like to actually just deliver the molds to them and pay them to make parts. That's the intention. I'll do the R&D. I've made some smaller pods, and I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get my gloves off. So don't be afraid to cut the darts, you know, in this stuff to get it to lay down. And really, the way this DTO81 is with the surface coat, you know, you could probably afford a little bit of voids underneath it. You know, it's a room temp. The way it was described to me, as soon as you turn this thing into an autoclave mold and you put it under 100 psi under extreme heat, if there's a void in there, it'll show up. So consolidation is the name of the game here. And so far it's looking pretty good. I'm going to trim off some of this excess and fill in back here in the back. Even though this is going to be a mold, you want to try to keep it balanced somewhat. When I mean balanced, I mean the layers, I guess. You don't want to get it too thick in one spot versus the other. The other advantage of this shape on this pod, the shape actually adds rigidity, the way it's curved. And what I'm going to try to do when I do a control line stump fuselage is actually incorporate enough curves in it to make it look cool, but the curves will be functional to add rigidity. The best example I like to give is a 55-gallon drum. If they didn't run those beads around the drum, basically it would collapse. So putting the 2 or 3 beads or whatever they do around it is structural. So I try to incorporate enough stuff around the mold Now here, I don't know if you can see on the front, it's got some glass hanging out. So I'll build that up a little bit, put some glass on there. Okay, let's just say that you're laying this up and see how it's getting a little, let's just say it has more resin in there than you want. Don't be afraid to do this. Take some of this powder, put that on there like that, pat it in. That'll sort of bridge a little bit of a gap, you know, where the glass ends. So you're going to build it up a little bit with that as you go. The other beauty of this whole thing is you don't have to worry about weight. So let's say the glass is a little porous up here in the nose. We'll sprinkle a little of this up here. And this stuff, once this resin cures with this DTO81 in it, it turns to rock. Now I remember when I was using some kind of polyurethane casting resin, I just took some play sand and mixed in there to see what would happen. I mean, it turned out alright. What you can get away with on a room temp cure is completely different than what it would take under heat or an autoclave or bowl. So there's one layer. I'm going to go with one more layer. Let's get this out of the way. I got enough resin here and epoxy to get 2 layers. That was my goal. If you tuned in later, this is what I'm working with right here. 9.6 ounces a yard. Here's another trick. I don't know if it's kosher or not, but I've done it. So you take this loose weave or plain weave, and you've got a shape like this. And I like to take it corner to corner, and I skew it so the fibers end up going like this to better conform to my shape. It makes a little bit tighter weave and it makes it longer. So anyway, that helps. Little tip. And just more resin. Yeah, that DTO81 at the fillet was almost mandatory with this 9.6 to get the conformity to get down in that curve. Now, some of the guys back in the day, they'd use polyester resin to make molds. It's really fast. I heard enough horror stories with gel coat and curdling and all the different things. I went with epoxy. even though it was room temp. I felt like I got more predictability out of it. There's a guy here in Plainfield. He's still out here. He flies a little bit. He doesn't do any composites anymore, but he told me he started out with polyester and he had nothing but trouble after a while. And he had trouble where he couldn't figure out why. He'd do the exact same thing over and over until one day, it didn't work. And I don't know if it was moisture in the gel coat or what, but he called a guy that did polyester for a living. He just sort of chuckled. He said, "Yeah, it happens." His gel coat was curdling or something. So right now you can see I'm almost out of the clear resin. I guessed right when I split it. I split the batch so I could get some DTO81 in it. Steve. Yeah. Yeah, Sparky. Yeah, I've talked to him. Making some coin. Yeah, Sparky. He's out there with this composite stuff, trying to get it to work. I told him, I said, I don't know how it is, but it's almost that you got to pay the failure price with this stuff. You get going on it, and like we said, you get going far enough, it's like, well, you can't turn back now. You got to keep going. You've already got your time and material in it. So get some darts going around this scoop. The other thing that helps, once this resin starts to tack up a little bit, it stays down. So you get a little bit of a cure on it. And that was the advantage of on that carbon bell crank thing. I'd make those things where towards the end of the layup, the process, after 20 minutes of laying up, the resin would start to thicken up, and that's when I'd really be able to consolidate and smash it down in the mold without it springing back out. If you try to smash it down in the mold with that much carbon tow, when it was lower viscosity, it would want to spring back out. So you get a really nice smash right at the end, and it would stay down in there so you could cap it. See if I can turn this around a little bit so you can see the nose. I'll get this thing adjusted here. I think when it's all said and done, I'll have so much epoxy on everything. So there's a better view of the nose. As you can see, I'm trying to wrap a lot of this carbon around that duct. So I'm going to come in here with some of this putty I made up and work that in. And like I said, here's the other trick. Take this dry stuff, pour it right over the top of it. Once you do that, just keep working that in. So you can change the viscosity right on the plug. See how that's forming up. And then here you could flare it out a little bit, and so you got some resin rich areas here. We're going to work some of that down in there. Yep, I'm not going to answer the phone now. Now the next step, this is sort of the fun part, is get all this dough onto this mold. And what it does at this stage, and you'll see, it'll give you a grainy tooth to bond to probably later today. I probably won't do it on the video. It'll be redundant. It'll just be more glass and more of what I'm doing. So you get this globbed on here, right? You're just going to work this in. So it's a combination of tooling dough and glass. Usually the demos, they show you the tooling dough, they show you actually having it in a dough to where they roll it out with a rolling pin. I like to come in here with a slurry like this and work in a layer of this stuff. And then I'll come back later and I'll probably start with more glass and then more tooling dough. I like to keep the dough, especially close to the surface like this, a little bit wetter. The other thing that happens, it works in the weave a little bit. It'll be interesting. I think eventually I'll take one of these molds and I'll post cure it and to 150 or whatever. Or I could, this size mold I could stick in my oven. I could get it up to 400, but and then I'd take it in there, composite shop, and I'd say let her rip. We'll see what happens in the autoclave. See if we can get a part out of it. So at this stage, don't be afraid to get your fingers in it. It helps work the resin, consolidate it. The other thing you can do towards the B stage here, if you got the time, you could sort of babysit it, make sure that it doesn't spring back up or whatever. So it's a combination of stippling and actual brushing. So, I don't know, what is this, a little over a foot. That's 100 grams for the 2 layers of cloth plus the tooling dough. So let's just say you come back, I don't know, later on today, and this is already somewhat hardened up. Let's say you get around a rough spot like this. Okay, you got these jagged edges or whatever. You can sand them down, or what you can do before you lay up another layer of glass, you can go in there and put more dough. You put more dough like right up in here, it allows the glass to lay smooth. And the way this mold's set up, it's extended out 3/8, so the nose of this thing will be cut off like right in here, because once this thing is laid up, it'll be an open mold, be all the way through. Won't be like a wheel pan. So at this stage, I try to make it fairly smooth. Try to get it to where it's camera adjusted. This camera flips. When you point it down, it'll flip the video upside down. It's one of these streaming cameras, and the idea is if you're streaming from your computer and you point the camera down, it flips the image, so turns it around so it looks like you got the same point of view as the person that's sitting behind the camera. I'm not sure if I like that feature or not. So you can see how it's sort of glossy at this point. And here's what I like to do. At this stage, I like to do this. And I start rubbing that. And what'll happen is it'll allow you to smooth it. It's sort of like adding flour to the pie crust, right? All of a sudden it's not quite as sticky, and you're able to form it. And of course, just by letting it sit there, it'll absorb the excess resin. And of course, if you do this and you pat it, you'll consolidate it. I see right there, it's stuck to my glove. I'll pat that little spot out. I'll rub it to smooth it. And if it's a little thick in areas, just pat that, use your finger and you pat that bump down. Now, to get this edge, I'm going to flip it up a little bit. Put some right in here. Do the same thing. So this allows you a rock solid mold with less fiberglass. So you can really compact now that you have some of that dry powder sitting there. And then of course you'll see the shininess come back. Put some more on there. Rub it down. I don't know if you could actually get too much of this on there. Basically it'll absorb till it won't absorb anymore. And whatever's left on the surface you could brush off before you actually light up the next layer of glass. But by doing this dry powder and rubbing it, you're able to get a really super nice smooth mold. Now you're thinking, well, it's really not that big of a deal, right? You know, it's not being molded against, but if you put this in a vacuum bag in an autoclave, whether you go through this extent or not, I do know you want a smooth backside of the mold. If you have little fibers sticking up like little shards or something, I mean, basically it's going through the vacuum bag. That is if you do an envelope bag where it goes around the whole surface. Let's see, he's tuning the... Yeah. I'm glad the string's working out. Like I said, I'll go back and edit these things. Get some more up here. The other thing I think might help, when you get an even thickness, maybe it helps shrinkage. It's all uniform, maybe you don't have resin rich areas. So think of this as a sandwich core. This is just the first layer of bread. There'll be another layer that goes over the top of this. You can really feel this fillet here too, the uniformity of it. Spread it out. Another thing you should do is get rid of all this glass hanging over. it just weights down the laminate. It'll give you trouble. You don't need extra weight hanging. You can save those pieces for little fillers later. So I think that's pretty much got it. I mean, I think I got it consolidated pretty good. You know, my phone hadn't rang all day. As soon as I turn this thing on, the camera, and get the resin on my fingers, phone starts ringing. So I think we're looking pretty good here. I'll have to give Freeman a call, see what they've got to replace this DTO81, or check their website out. I did probably a year ago, 6 months. They had something, I can't remember what it was. I'll tell you what, the temptation to most people, and me included, I've done it many times, is to say, well, we don't need the DTO81, I'll go out and get something else, and it's not made for the purpose. And I've gotten burnt so many times, wasted so much money trying to save money, it's unbelievable. So it was years ago I finally got to the point, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll just bite the bullet and get the right stuff. I guess you could reuse some of this DT, but we'll just throw it away. It's not that much. I got a 50-pound bag of it over there. Now if you get this resin before it actually cures, you can clean it up with a little acetone. I try to keep this glass top waxed a little bit. It helps in between cleanings. Yeah, I just wax the glass in between waxing molds. This is a better look. It's got the surface coat. You can see right here it's probably about a 1/4 inch thick of DTO81, and then the last final layer of glass. So it builds up a really nice thick mold, and that's what this little pod should come out like. These were overkill, but it was an experiment to see how that filler worked. All right, you even got to see the cleanup. Okay, see if there's any more comments. That's about it. Hope everybody has a good Friday and enjoy their weekend. And I'll finish the second layer on this mold, and I'll come back with another video when I actually do the other side, the opposing side. So thanks for coming in. I enjoyed making the video and hope you enjoy